All right, so let's get the conversation started. What do you need to know about the import-export trade in the country? Let me first begin with Dr. Wilfred Marube, who's the CEO of the Kenya Export Promotion and Brand Agency. He's joining me live now via Skype. Dr. good afternoon, and thank you for making the time for us here on Business Now. I guess my first question to you is in terms of information, because there's many people who want to go into this business, perhaps some who are saying, you know, I want to start importing bales of clothing or household items or hardware. But I guess there's a lot that needs to happen or to be known in this industry. Where does one get information on this business?
Okay, thank you, Yvonne, and it's a pleasure for you having me in this show. As you rightly put, the agency that I work for is the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, and our main mandate is to promote exports for Kenyan products and services. So in terms of building awareness and enabling aspiring exporters getting to the export market, we have a service that we call the Trade Advisory Services, and we're able to take you through. And the first part of information that we need to understand is the aspect of product. Which products do you have that you want to deal with? And which markets are you getting into? And that is making an assumption that already you have a trading entity that is legal. And as you rightly put out on the top 5 documentation that one needs to require, we're able to take you through. You must have a company which is registered, of course, with the right documentation. And then, of course, you set up the business and ensure that the business also meets the technical specifications that are required for that kind of trade. And then there's a documentation process which you are supported. And the good thing is that not just as a program, but in the trade sector, there are many other agencies, just like Kentrade, which helps you now with the documentation and the registration process for you to get into the business. But for we as an agency, our focus more is ensuring that your products meet the market requirements and that we ensure that you're able to access the markets whereby you can be able to sell your products. So our main orientation is ensuring that your products is high quality through our product development program, and most importantly, giving you opportunities to get market access. And as an agency, we're also thinking on how we can leverage your technology. How can we provide market access opportunities for the would-be exporters? Because you can have a product, but it's also something else, having it out there and able to access the export market. So those are the 2 programs, I would say in a nutshell, that we support would-be exporters and of course working with the business management organizations to be able to empower them. That is on products, and then number 2 is on market access, including meeting technical specifications of the products.
I see.
And yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. Allow me to jump in because I wanted to ask what the main challenge you have seen with the export, products that we are doing to outside the country. So there's been a complaint about standardization and the quality of product that we're sending out, but that's from what we understand. But how do you understand it as one of the major challenges for any goods that are going outside the country?
One of the challenges, if I want to slightly go beyond your question, the first challenge that we have as a country is that we have a limited destination markets. We're exporting our products to very few markets. As you've likely put out, there are about 5 top markets, destination markets. So the first challenge is that we need to expand the opportunities, get into new markets, into emerging markets, so that we're able now to have much more opportunities in terms of our product range. That's one of the challenges at a very high level, the limited number of export markets. The other challenge, again, Yvonne, that we face as a country is the aspect of also having a limited export basket. We have few products that we're exporting and which sometimes get disrupted within the global value chain. So at a high level, We are dealing with limited markets. We're also dealing with limited products. So we have to diversify our markets and we have to diversify our products. That's on that particular range. And then at a lower level, in terms of market access and standards, perhaps the main challenge would be when exporters do not pay attention to the market requirements. Because each market, for you to be able to export a product to a particular market, the product must meet the technical specifications required for access of that market. And the good news is that as an agency, that's the kind of advice that we provide through our trade advisory services and through part of our market development programs. We are able to unhold exporters or would-be exporters until they make their products, which meets the market requirements, depending on where they want to export the products, working with other government agencies like Kenya Bureau of Standards, like KIRDE. And then apart from meeting the standards, we're also able to help the would-be entrepreneurs also brand their products. Because branding is also part of meeting market requirements. So that's part of the challenge. The challenge is that, and the solution we have is that we need to expand our markets, and we are glad we are doing that. We've identified a few new markets which we want to get into, and we also then ask ourselves, how do we take advantage of the free trade agreements that our government has been able to successfully negotiate, including the implementation of the CFTA? So in a nutshell, the main challenge is limited products. The other challenge is limited markets, and the solution we provide is we actually are getting diversification.
Okay.
We identify new markets where we're taking the exporters through exhibitions, and probably at this point I would want to mention that maybe one of the main markets that we want to encourage Kenyan exporters to get into is the UAE, that is Dubai.
Yeah.
And the greater region.
Yeah, Wilfred, I just want to have a pause there for just a moment, because we will get to that in a moment as we look towards, looking ahead and looking forward. And we will talk about what those new markets could be and what the new products would likely be that perhaps you're saying we haven't paid attention to and we need to diversify so that we're not all going into the same thing. Maybe it's, avocado and horticulture and perhaps expanding that. We'll get to that in a moment. So just pause on that moment and let me speak to Samuel Karanja, who's here with me from the Small Traders Importers Alliance. Wilfred Marube has, enlisted, of course, what needs to happen and some of the major challenges about the markets, the products, and the technical specifications. But I want to just start with asking you a very practical question. Many people see import-export as a business opportunity. Yes. And so they're saying, look, I want to go and get a bale from, of second-hand clothing, for instance, household goods, pots and pans, crockery, or whatever it is. What's the first thing they need to do?
Thank you, Yvonne, for having me. Well, for you to start a business in Kenya, let's say, for example, the importation business, you just need to do your market research. Basically, it has been made easier by the internet. We are able to connect with the source, and you are able even to get your products here in Kenya without you going to the country of origin. And so we have many producers, or we have many manufacturers online who we are in contact with. But basically, from MSME Alliance of Kenya, what we did is that we were able to capitalize and make sure that we have credible sources from China and also from Dubai, who we vetted, and now our members can be able to access to the sources from Dubai and also China. The reason why we did that is because we had issues where our traders sent money and they could not be able to get their cargo here in the country. Having said that, we got now credible people, and we did that because as much as the government is doing a lot for us, we're also complementing what the government is doing, making sure that we also take responsibility of our business. Basically, when you're able to do your market research in the country and know what you want to sell, let me give an example of an industry I'm very passionate about, beauty industry. When you go to Dubai, you find that you can start that business with 20,000 shillings, because you can be able to go to China and also Dubai and get earrings and come and sell and maybe make a profit of 60,000 shillings based on your market research and also based on what you have done in terms of preparation. And so that's what we do as MSME Alliance of Kenya. We are able now to consolidate our suppliers from the source.
Okay, and that is interesting because a lot of Kenyans will be interested in what you've just said, that
Yes.
In the beauty sector, for example, if you want to bring in jewelry, you can start off with 20,000 shillings.
Yes.
But Samuel, is 20,000 for an entire container? So I want to start, but I want to start small.
Yes.
I perhaps don't have the money, or even it might be very risky to bring an entire container of whatever products I've decided I'm interested in. So what is the way to start small and build up? I've heard that some people would come together to pay for one full container and everybody, so I do my jewelry and you know, you do your hardware and somebody else does, I don't know, tiling and carpeting and that sort of thing. But what are the ways in which now you start small, say with that 20,000? So I have 20,000 and I start where?
Thank you, Yvonne. Well, it is important to know that, you know, it's not only risky, not about being risky, but also capacity. You find that most SMEs don't have financial muscle to bring a full load container, call it FLC. So what happens is that different traders come together and they are brought together by a consolidation company. And MSME Alliance of Kenya has a consolidation company called MEK Global Freights. What we do is that we bring all the traders together, different traders from probably they are shipping from China, and we have 3 warehouses. So those 3 warehouses in Guangzhou, Shanxi and other places, what happens is we give them the addresses. The consolidator is responsible to make sure that this cargo get into the container. So you have different products fitting in one container. Ideally, the trader buys what you call the CBM. He buys a cubic meter of the container. So once you buy a cubic meter of the container,
so it's like renting space in that
you
container.
rent space, exactly.
Okay.
So you buy a cubic meter of the container. So that cubic meter of that container, different traders are able to fill that container, which is about 70 CBMs or 69 CBMs, depending on what you're bringing in. So once you buy, the consolidator is responsible to pack goods from the source and clear goods. And also, let me go back a little bit. When you pack goods from the source, you have to have a certificate of conformity, a COC. And the other day, the government opened up for us to have a COC from the country, in the country. So we have a PVOC, pre-verification certificate, which is also the certificate of conformity from the source. Once the goods have been packed well and labeled well, they are brought into the country. So the consolidator then is in partnership with the clearing agent, who now receives the goods in the port of Mombasa, clears the goods. What the government did for us, because they saw the capacity and also they saw the strength of small medium entrepreneurs, they gave us a one deconsolidation point here at the Boma, at the Kenya Railways, whereby every small medium entrepreneur consolidated cargo comes in and the process of clearing is expedited. So it eases up. It's a fluid, flawless process.
How long would that process take on average?
In terms of clearing?
Yeah, I mean, from the moment you rent your space in a container, you have identified, you know, your goods.
Consolidator, yes.
You know, they've been put there, they've been cleared at the port, and then they're here in Nairobi. How long would that process averagely take?
A realistic time frame is 45 days.
Okay.
And that is a realistic time, but you can even get them earlier, depending on what you have, the speed to which the container has been filled, and also the speed of the clearing agent. But 45 days is a comfortable time.
All right. Let's talk about the benefits, and I know you've mentioned this a little bit about, you know, being part of your association and how does one do that, because, you know, you have everybody's out here trying to do things on their own, and so the benefit of being part of an association such as yours, what does that confer on the traders?
It was actually a challenge by the government. You remember from 2017 to 2019, the president, we met the president concerning the cargo which had stuck in the port of Mombasa and also the ICD here. And what the government does, it works with organized groups. And initially what was happening is that we had different small associations with no voice. So we decided to have one umbrella, not collapse the small association, but let them have a voice, because each association was registered based on a different, you know,
and it's product specific.
Yeah, and it's product specifically. And so we decided to have this umbrella. So we registered a company limited by guarantee, which is a non-profit organization. and we decided to be the voice of small medium entrepreneurs. For you to become a member, it's as simple as logging in. There's a system that we are going to launch very soon through a toll-free call center, and we are going to call all our members so that they can be able to access about 50 shillings per month. Basically, it's to sustain what we are doing, because we are in business ourselves, and we want to sustain this process. So for us to be an organized group, it's easier even for the government to work in terms of taxation. When it comes to taxation, it's also easier for us even to be able to lobby from the government. Policy also, you find that the government sometimes make policy in our absentia, so we are not in the negotiating table. So you find that many times the policies which the government makes, they hurt us because they were not able to come to us and ask us, and that's why we formed this alliance. It has over 20 associations, organized groups, and what ideally, Yvonne, we are doing, we are bringing in organized groups, and we are also disorganized groups. So this is called the informal sector. Okay. We are formalizing now the informal sector, making sure that the government does not look at us as informal. Okay. So we change that mindset, that narrative of being informal, and become formal, so that you can be able to be very organized. And the moment you join us, you are able to get the benefits of even bringing cargo and security of your cargo, because basically we take responsibility of your cargo from the source to your destination, and we make sure that that cargo, even in terms of clearing, it passes through all the standardization that the government has put in place. Okay.
You mentioned the issue of taxes, and I've heard a few complaints from people I know who, engage in this business, and some traders, and they say that first of all the regime sort of shifts from one thing to another. Whatever you have imported now, 3 months from now, the taxes would be different. The taxes could be higher. Is this a specific challenge, from where you sit, and what are some of the things you've heard from your members regarding taxation? Once the goods arrive, then you have to pay taxes, of course, before they're cleared.
We have a challenge with the tax policies in Kenya, because, as you have rightfully said, it keeps on shifting. One of the things that a business person needs to have is to exactly know how he's going to do business and how he's going to pay the taxes. And the issue is, you may plan for you to bring maybe a full load container, and you find that taxes have escalated. And the government has done that many times, and we have sat down with them and told them we need predictability. Because without that predictability, I need to know when I go to China and I've put cargo in this container, I need to know the amount of money which I'm going to pay for the taxes, and I also need to know the profit margins which I'm going to make, because we are partners with the government. But ideally, you find that sometimes it has escalated. Let me give an example of something which happened with the people who import shoes. There's a time that the government escalated. There's a policy, the East African Common Tariff, which was enforced. And what happened, they signed that deal without letting us know. So the people who had put in containers of shoes, it escalated from 1.8 to 9 million per container. And so it was a shock. And there are about 300 to 400 containers in the port of Mombasa, because they couldn't be able to clear. We were able to sit down with the government, we were able to sit down with KRA and the Ministry and the Treasury, and we were able to bring it down to 2 million. You see, now, the government should ideally consult us before they make such kind of moves, because it affects our businesses, it affects even the taxes that we pay, and also it affects even the government footing its own bill.
Yeah, and indeed, perhaps being part of an association gives you a better voice, a bigger platform to be able to speak on behalf of that. And that's an interesting example that you give us. Thank you for that. Just stay with me. And also, Dr. Marube, if you can hear me, continue to stay with us. We'll get back to you in just a moment. But let's hear from one such trader, that's a car dealer, who's right now speaking with our Faisal Ahmed. Faisal?
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Khalif Cairo, who is an importer of luxury vehicles here in the country. Maybe if you could just join us, Khalif. Thank you for joining us, Cairo. Maybe what are some of the challenges that you undergo on a daily basis when it comes to importing vehicles, especially last year with the pandemic and all that?
Okay, the biggest challenge we are having right now in the car importation industry is the problem to do with the shipping. We've been having a major delay with the ships. This is because of the pandemic. Shipping schedules had to change last year. So we are experiencing a very major issue with that. And then the second major issue we are having is the problem to do with the availability of cars. You understand that we get a lot of our cars from Singapore, Japan, the UK, but a lot of these economies have been hit with recessions, so guys are not upgrading their cars. So they are not selling the cars that we normally buy from them. Yeah.
And maybe what are some of the challenges that you face that the government can address going forward, be it issues to do with regulations or taxation?
Okay, what I will want the government to do for us, as you can see, we are very young people. We will want the government to make the taxation process a bit more transparent, because at times we feel like the taxes are too harsh, so they end up killing the industry. You'll find that, for instance, they'll hike taxes without giving us warnings. And you know, these can really discourage you. We've seen some models, some dealers have actually stopped bringing in some models because the taxes are too harsh. That's number one. And then number two, I think the government needs to take us more seriously. We need to get more business from government agencies. We also need to be involved when it comes to crafting regulations. Problem with the NTSA team system. It was offline for almost 2 weeks. No communication from NTSA. Okay, it came a bit later, so we just...
For the viewers who are looking at this particular show right now and they're watching us, most of them are wondering, you're a fairly young guy and you're dealing in high-end vehicles. We were just talking about the prices a bit not too long ago, and like the A5 behind us right here was going for around 2.6 million shillings. Yes. Maybe what are some of the requirements that are needed to venture into this business?
Okay, first of all, I normally tell people you need to get the experience. Personally, I've been selling cars since I was 18. It's what I've done for all that time. So you first need to know the experience. You need to know what appeals to Kenyans, because Kenyans are very peculiar people. You might bring a vehicle that you think is very nice, but nobody buys it. So you need to do a bit of market research, understand the people, understand the trends. And you also need to get financing from people. You need to, I would like to tell the young people that some of these ideas, you cannot implement them on your own. You need to talk to people. There are people who have more money than you do. So talk to them about your ideas, put your ideas on paper, and look for funding. Yeah, because as you said, it requires a lot of money to run such an operation.
Maybe just in a nutshell, in less than a minute, maybe just explain to us how you got started.
Okay, first of all, I started off in a showroom in Lavington called Ocean Cross Autos. I worked there for around 2 years. Then I moved over to Hurlingham at Kenyan Motors. I also worked there for around another 2 years. So I've been working in many showrooms, and from working in the showrooms, I was able to meet many people. So through these networks that I created in those 6 years that I've been in the industry, I was able to find the right investors who were able to come together and found this company. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. That was Cairo. Cairo, thank you very much for talking to us. He is a dealer in luxury car vehicles, second-hand luxury car vehicles in the country. He just explained to us some of the challenges that they go through when it comes to importing these vehicles, and also what is required to venture into this business. And maybe later on, if I'm lucky enough, I'll take some of the cars here on a test drive to see how they actually perform. Yvonne.
I know you certainly will definitely do that. By the way, you know, for those of you who don't know, which is a good thing why Faisal is doing that, he has this great show. It's on our Citizen Facebook page, and it's all about cars. And that showroom is just to die for. I mean, you know, if only some of us could get there. Perhaps when we grow up, Mungu akitujalia. Thank you, Faisal and Cairo. And Cairo mentioned something very interesting, and I think his story on how he got started is something what, you know, Samuel, you were telling us about, understanding the market that you're in. And, you know, he says he's worked at various showrooms and therefore began to understand what Kenyans want, what they like before waking up and saying, okay, I'm going to come in and I'll start bringing cars. What cars do Kenyans like? What cars work for, you know, our terrain here? So some interesting, you know, insights there that we've gotten from Khalif Cairo, who's a car dealer there, speaking to our Faisal Ahmed. So now we're done with that. We've gotten some lessons from him there. I'd like us to come back to Dr. Wilfred Marube, if he's still with us on the line. Dr. I hope you are still with us. I wanted to ask you about, before we get into, you know, what those new markets and new products are, we have seen the Make It Kenya or Made in Kenya logo that you know, many people are putting on their products. So I understand it's not just anybody that can do it. So tell us about this logo and what it means and what sort of benefits it confers on businesses that have it. Is it some type of certification, and how important is it?
Thank you, Yvonne, for that particular question. The Make It Kenya logo is basically an attempt to answer the question, how do you identify a Kenyan product? And then, of course, associate that sense of identification with a preference and also with an assertion that that is a mark that Kenya is known as a source of high quality products. So it's not a certification mark. It is a branding mark that's supposed to ease decision making for the buyers of our products, whether locally here, because we are already doing it locally, so that it's easy for Kenyans to identify Kenyan products, and also as part of what we call the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya campaign. So the first question you ask yourself, if I walk into a supermarket, for instance, how do I identify that these are Kenyan products? So the mark makes it easy for that to be done. And what we have as an agency is that we take enterprises and businesses through a particular process before they fully get registered with the mark of identity. And it is our hope that this mark of identity would create a high affinity for Kenyan products. Not just that high affinity, but it will also be an exclamation or probably a reinforcement of the fact that if we consume what is Kenyan, then it's very easy for us even to be able to consume what in diaspora, because so that we build up to the Kenyan exports. Because Yvonne, you could imagine what it would mean if we have Kenyans, for instance, who are living in the diaspora, and then they are able to access the same because they are able to identify as Kenyan. That's on one part, before even talking about our other clients who come from other countries who consume our high quality products. So in a nutshell, Yvonne, that is a mark of identity for recognition, and which we believe is going to drive affinity for the Kenyan products and make it easier for a Kenyan to make a choice locally whether to buy a product. And it is for our exporters, for our importers externally, for them also to identify, assuming that you are to be in London, and then you wanted to identify which avocado is Kenyan.
Right.
Then I believe if you get that mark, a product or maybe grown in Kenya, then you'd have that confidence.
Okay. All right. And just to be clear, not anybody can put that mark on their products, right?
No, there is a process.
Yeah, exactly.
Is a process.
Yeah, yeah. Because, you know, obviously, like you said, it helps and you take people through, you know, the process and making sure that they are indeed, you know, made in Kenya as they purport to be. Just because I've seen a couple of people try to do it, and I have seen your agency, amongst others, saying, no, hey, you know, it's not that simple. You can't just, you know, make your products and say, you know, put the sticker on it. While I still have you, let's talk about the new markets and new products, because you talked about diversifying our product range and the markets to which we do that. From data that I got from your agency, there was more than 25, you know, top destination markets over the last 5 years. Of course, the top 5, you know, leading the pack is Uganda, our next door neighbor. But you're certainly saying we can go to more countries than we are in already. Which are these markets and what products do they need?
Okay, thank you, Yvonne. One of the things we need to say is that as an agency, we've identified 22 what we consider to be the priority markets. And out of these markets, some of them are traditional, as you rightly put it, and some of them are what we consider emerging or new markets. For instance, we've seen a growing demand for Kenyan products in South Korea, for instance, as an emerging market. We have countries like Russia, Kazakhstan. We have other African countries, especially in the West African region. We have Nigeria, Ghana, and Zambia. So these are countries who we are not trading with as much. But there is potential because we've identified some of the products that we can be able be exported there. And part of this information we may not be able to share it probably in this particular conversation, but this information that we share with other business management organizations like Kenya Association of Manufacturers, KEPSA, and National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Because Yvonne, you understand that information is power. And even some of these markets that we are targeting, there are also other countries.
True.
Also to diversify that.
Yeah.
So even up to how much information we can be able to share in terms of products.
Okay, Dr. Marube, I'd just like to, I'm sorry to interject. Please hold, because I've got somebody who's holding on the line, a phone call, and I will get back to you to finish your thought process, including giving advice to Kenyans on which, other products to get into, because you know how we get. If quail is in, then we're all jumping onto quail. If it's importing cars, then we're all jumping onto that. And just to give advice on how we diversify products, so perhaps products that we haven't thought of that, are lucrative. And I'll get to you to finish that point in just a moment. Please allow me to interject, because I'd like to speak on phone to the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development. That's David Osiany, who is joining me on phone. Thank you so much for speaking with me, David. I know you've had a busy day and we've pulled you out of a meeting just for this phone call. So I've got two very quick questions for you. The first one is, what is the support that, government and your ministry in particular is giving to traders in the field of import and export?
Thank you very much, Yvonne. It's nice to talk to you, and glad to converse with the Kenyans. Now, the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development is a facilitator. The greatest thing that we stand for and represent is trade facilitation. You're aware that when you talk imports, exports, one of the key things that we cannot miss talking about is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area that kicked off in January this year, presenting opportunities for Kenyans to both export and import. But at the ministerial level, there are several policy issues and interventions that have been put in place to ensure this facilitation. So first, we try to help our importers and exporters to ensure that the products they export to the market meet the correct standards. Now, in so doing, especially for SMEs, we have the Kenya Industrial Research Development Institute that is tasked to help as many Kenyans as possible to have their products meet the global standards. Now, KIRDI, which is the Kenya Industrial Research Development Institute, helps with the product creation, then invites the sister organization, which is KEBS, to give it the right standards to ensure that it conforms. So we have helped you to build this product or work on this product that you think we can export, some value addition. KEBS then steps in to facilitate trade by giving the right standards and marks for these products. Then we have KEPROBA, which is represented by my colleague on the show with us today, Dr. Wilfred Marube. Now, KEPROBA is mandated to seek markets, then help many Kenyans and businesses to access those markets. All right? So they will tell you that in this context, like when you go to Dubai, the way they write is from left to right, not right to left. So if you do this way, it will not meet this mark. This is how you're supposed to brand. And they have a whole trade advisory unit at KEPROBA, the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency, to support businesses. Now, in terms of importation, what we have done is to work with the various agencies, because it's a multi-agency approach. So we have the Kenya Revenue Authority working closely with Kenya Bureau of Standards to ensure that we support our importers. Supporting our importers include even ensuring easier and faster clearance, as well as having points where they can give their suggestions. I know that I've heard my previous colleagues there on the show say there are issues around taxation. The gentleman who is importing cars says taxation issues. Now, these are the things we stand for. We try to speak together amongst ourselves as ministries and actors in import-export to find the best solutions for our business people so that they are not hurt in the process. But it's also important to note that the president has a very clear agenda for the young, the micro, small, and medium enterprises. We have an SME policy that is about to be launched that we've worked on to capture how they are able to do business in this environment. It is also important to note, Yvonne, that we have the Micro Small Enterprise Authority. Now, the Micro and Small Enterprise Authority has a registrar, the registrar of SMEs. We want to try and formalize acknowledgement of our small and medium entrepreneurs, because in so doing, it will be much easier for them to even access funding. Of course, the ministry has institutions that support various businesses in terms of funding. That is also trade facilitation. So we have the Industrial Development Bank under the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade and Enterprise Development. We have the Kenya Industrial Estates. We have the Micro Small Enterprise Authority. But a more coordinated field will give and yield better results in terms of facilitation.
And thank you for letting us know about all of these agencies that are available. And like you rightly said, Kirdi is such, I think, perhaps, an underutilized or perhaps not so well-known resource, which incidentally we featured here on our very first show. So just important to emphasize to everybody out there how important that organization is for those getting into business. David, let's talk about, the AFCTA that is now, in effect since the 1st of January this year. That's the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. So, maybe for people who are not very familiar with this, what is it and what are the ways in which Kenyans can be part of this and benefit from this trade agreement?
So I'll try and break this down as simply as possible for our listeners, because if we got into the business jargon and trade jargon, they may well lose it. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is essentially just saying that we have this one huge market called Africa. So if you're a banana seller in Kisii County, you can imagine that you've been able to make quite some money selling to 100,000 in Kisii County and its environs, or to about 1 million people in Kenya. If you are selling rice from where, you're probably thinking that I've been able to sell to Turkana and I have 3 million, buyers every year. Now we are trying to show you, look at it this way. We are now moving from Kenya as a small market to Africa as a bigger market. Now, apart from it being a bigger market, we are also telling you the reason it's called a free trade area is we are in agreement as member states of various outfits, EAC, COMESA, and all others, that we can trade with each other without the barriers that are usually put, both tariff and non-tariff. And so because you can say that there is no taxation or duty levied on this product when you sell it to Angola, but the people in Angola just decide that you are going to test it for 21 days to get results, by which time that product will be meaningless. So the ministry, and working together with other countries, are signatories to AFCFTA, which will ensure that we are able to do, sell and import, export and import from this market called Africa, because as you know, China is just a third the size of Africa. People don't know that. If China is a third the size of Africa and it can do business that big, then we are a power, even if we did business within Africa alone. But I don't want to be protectionist to the point of saying we must inhibit ourselves and do business only locally. No, we will still do business outside. But there are so many opportunities for business between ourselves as member states within Africa that has gone unnoticed. And that is part of what Dr. Marube and his team at the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency are trying to ensure that we do, that we access these markets, that Kenyans know more about these markets, and so do the other agencies.
All right. I know I said 2 questions. Allow me to ask a third, because I think this is something I have noticed you are passionate about, and that is value addition. I mean, I think we've seen you visiting a distillery in Ikolomani. We've seen you visiting an avocado oil processing plant in Muranga, and you know, and various others. And you speak about this, you know, quite a bit. Value addition, is this the way to go, so that we're not just exporting avocado, we're not just exporting, you know, coffee beans or that sort of thing? And how can we start to do that? Many SMEs are saying, well, we're just a group of three, we're still young, so how do we get into value addition?
Value addition is the hallmark of proper business and greater profitability. It is good to be able to sell your peanuts, but I guarantee you that the amount you make from selling a kilo of peanuts, if it were transformed to peanut butter, you would make almost 5 times that amount. And that's why I have been passionate about calling our people to add value to whatever product it is, whether it is bananas, whether it is avocado. And I go around showcasing the success of value addition and the potential we have. Now, one of the institutions that's hugely underutilized and which I want as many Kenyans as possible to visit and interact with is called the Kenya Industrial Research Development Institute, KIRDI. It's headquartered in Nairobi, has a massive campus in Kisumu. There's one in Eldoret, there's one in Bungoma, there's one in Wajir, because the government has invested in machinery and equipment that are expensive so that it helps farmers and many other people to add value to their product. I went to KIRDI in Kisumu, Yvonne, and I found a lady doing perfume. You cannot believe it. I used that perfume, and I had the scent running for 3 days, proper perfume. And people just don't know that this exists, that you can walk to KIRDI in Nairobi and tell them you have wheat, what is it you can do with your wheat, and they will tell you, we have a bakery here. We will process this into wheat flour. We will then make this into bread. You will brand it and then push it to the market with the help of KEBS. Because in so doing, we have also asked KIRDI, KIE, and KEBS to work together as a single unit. So when you need funding, then the Kenya Industrial Estate is going to inject some funding so long as you're within that ecosystem. And then KEBS knows that the researchers at KIRDI are good at what they do. They then examine the product that has been worked on, that has had some value addition, and they can give it the standardization mark. Young people and the old alike need to understand that selling rice is great, but selling it as branded and packaged rice adds a bit more money or a lot more money to that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's some great information that we have been able to get from you, David Osianyi, who's the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development. Thank you very much, David, for that and your insights. You know, this is something we could talk about for a very long time, but we have to take a break at this point in time. In fact, we'll be speaking or giving you details of somebody who's exporting avocado, or is it avocado, or guacamole, or is it guac, or whatever it is you want to call it. We'll be talking about that in just a moment, as well as some final words from my 2 guests here with me on the show this afternoon. Quick break, right back in a moment.